Hi, I'm Dana Brooks of Fasig Brooks Law Offices, and I'm joined today with Jimmy Fasig, my law partner. And we want to talk about the very interesting world of the share economy. Everybody's sharing things now, bed and breakfasts, but they're also sharing rides everywhere. And an Uber or a Lyft, those are really convenient resources to have. And I like how they're set up with computers and you get the app and all that. But they can be dangerous, and there's so many of them. And we're hearing more and more things about the concerns people should have about riding in them versus safety, but also, who pays for what if there's an injury. Jimmy, what's been some of your experiences with it?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I'm a big proponent of riding in Ubers, particularly if you've been drinking. I'm always encouraging, like, for example, my nephew and my niece, they're young kids.
Yeah.
But when you do get into an Uber or you do get into a Lyft, it's important to know a few safety tips, first of all.
Yeah.
And then secondly, if something happens, it's important to know who's responsible.
Right.
So let's start with the safety tips. First of all, always make sure that you check the license plate number with the number that they send you on the app.
Right.
That's important because you want to make sure you're not getting into a car with a stranger that's not being monitored and followed by Uber, because that could definitely be dangerous. Secondly, do not just get in your Uber and sit back and say nothing. If you got an Uber driver that's driving crazy, that's erratic, that's moving all around the road, you have got to do something and say something, because I have unfortunately seen cases where Uber drivers have caused some very, very significant accidents. You're not necessarily in perfectly good hands if you're in an Uber driver. Pay attention to how this driver is driving.
They're all humans. They're all unique individuals.
Yes.
They're not all going to be the same.
Yeah, if they're not driving well, then tell them to pull over. You get yourself another driver.
Right.
Also, pay attention to the reviews that this particular driver has gotten before you get into the car, because the drivers, they get reviews.
Oh yeah, so do the patrons.
Yes, yeah. You can review them and they can review you. Yes, that's right.
You can get a 1-star and skew your whole average.
That's right, that's right. So then you start getting bad Uber reviews. They're sending you the bad drivers.
But no, I mean, obviously they're going to send you probably, there's an algorithm, it's all computer. They're going to send you the best driver who's the closest by always, every time. So, if you end up and you're waiting and you're in some obscure place and this 2.2, Uber star guy's coming for you, just make sure you feel like you've made the right decision and that you make sure he's the person or she's the person who's supposed to be coming in accordance with what's on your app. But other than that, should you be comfortable in one, understanding that they have a certain threshold of responsibility they have to demonstrate, and that is true. You have to have a certain amount of insurance. The record is supposed to get looked at, their driving competency, that sort of thing.
Okay, so that actually brings up the next topic, which is, if you get in an accident and you're in an Uber, who's going to pay for it? Well, it's obviously not your fault because you're riding as a passenger. You do want to make sure you're wearing your seatbelt, because if you don't, then you could be possibly considered to be comparatively negligent.
Right.
But as long as you're wearing your seatbelt, then you've got a case against somebody else if you get injured as a passenger in an Uber. This is interesting. Even though it's somebody else's fault, your own PIP coverage is going to cover 80% of your medical bills and 60% of your lost wages, up to either $2,500 or $10,000, depending on a couple of factors. And the person whose fault it is going to cover whatever's not covered by the PIP. Plus, if you sustained a permanent injury, you would also be entitled to compensation for your pain, suffering, inconvenience, mental anguish, and lost capacity for the enjoyment of life. And that would come from either the Uber driver who's at fault, or the other person that caused the accident who was at fault, or possibly a combination of the two.
Now, does uninsured motorist ever come into play in a case like that, potentially?
Yes, absolutely. What I've run into is, if somebody's in an accident and in an Uber, I've seen where Uber provides uninsured motorists to its passengers.
There you go.
So
that's just another reason
you
really need to talk to a lawyer if you're in some sort of an accident, because you just can never know by just exchange of information and you calling their insurance company and that sort of thing. You can never know if you have really tapped every resource or considered every potential factor that goes into whether you're going to make a full recovery from this accident or not.
Yeah, when you get in an
accident,
there are always multiple avenues of recovery. Your insurance, their insurance, uninsured motorist coverage, the uninsured motorist coverage of people that you live with, the uninsured motorist coverage of the car that you're in. There there are so many possible avenues of recovery, so you do need, if you get in an accident, to call a lawyer so that you can really figure out what's the best avenue to go.